This show may contain adult language and themes. Listener discretion is advised. With that out of the way, let's start the show. You're listening to the Murder Is My Sign podcast, the only true crime astrology podcast, and I'm your host, Jordy Death, here to light your way through the true crime astrology storm. And for first time in quite a bit here, I'm actually in the studio by myself. Kyle has the day off, and he is enjoying it, sleeping and resting and relaxing because he had to work a very long week, so I'm going to give him that time off. And really, this is the final episode of the Columbine series, and this is the one where I'm going to be talking about astrology and compatibility and things like that, so it's not going to be that long of an episode, and we're just going to leave it at that. So, alright, so we basically, there's really not a whole lot to discuss as far as Columbine, happened. I mean, we covered the events and things like that. I do apologize, I did not do a memorial episode like I said I was going to do. I'll be honest, guys, my head is just not in the game anymore when it's coming to doing this podcast. And unfortunately, this will probably be my last one. I know I had a whole series planned for this season for doing compatibility, but my mental health is just too important right now to me, and given these really weird times, I think the last thing I want to do is true crime research. It's just really sucking the life out of me. So I'm going to be going on a hiatus after this episode. I'm not sure for how long. So I will be deactivating my Patreon, unfortunately. So thank you to the people out there who have supported me on Patreon. I really appreciate it. And, just thank you guys so much for your support during this time and your understanding. Now, Kyle and I are in the talks of continuing to do a podcast together. I'm not quite sure what that will entail. I'm hoping it will be more conversational and, kind of fun and upbeat. We might be talking about pop culture, things like that, because we do have a lot of similar interests as far as music and movies and things like that. We both love terrible horror movies. So we're kind of toying with the idea. He still really wants to do something, and I wouldn't mind doing something that was a little bit more lighthearted, that was a little less scripted, that I wouldn't have to dedicate a whole lot of time editing. But yeah, as far as Murder Is My Sign and the true crime astrology stuff, that is on hiatus. Unfortunately, indefinitely, because I don't know when I'll be coming back to that. This was going to be the last season of the show anyways. I don't know where I would have gone beyond this after doing compatibility. Perhaps maybe down the road I might pick it up and continue with the list of people I have, but as of right now, I'm just not in the right headspace to really bring you the material that I want to bring you and the quality of episodes that I'd like to give you. So I'm just gonna be kind of just doing my own thing. Don't worry about me though. I mean, this whole series on Columbine, as I've mentioned as Kyle and I have talked, has been a lot about mental health and taking care of yourself. And that is so important, which is why I'm, being very transparent with you guys as far as why I'm going to be taking this hiatus and why the show is going to be kind of stopping. Now, when Kyle and I do come back, it will probably still be under the name of Murder Is My Sign because this is established. It just won't be a true crime astrology podcast. It will probably be in a definite series or offshoots of Side Slice or something like that. So it's still an idea we're kicking around. So just the best way to stay up to date about this stuff would be probably to just follow me on social media. Everything's at Jordy Death. Or you can always email the show directly if you want to kind of get in touch and see what's going on. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. So we'll just kind of put a pin in that. kind of already said what I need to say about that. So let's just get into the compatibility of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. So let's start with Eric Harris. Eric was born on April 9th, 1981 in Wichita, Kansas. So this makes him an Aries as his sun sign. His moon is in the sign of Gemini, Mercury is in Aries, Venus is in Aries, Mars is in Aries, Jupiter and Libra are both in Libra. Jupiter and Saturn. See, guys, like I have this whole thing like written out in front of me, and I'm still very just in La La Land. Jupiter and Saturn are both in the sign of Libra, and they're in retrograde. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are also all in retrograde. Uranus being in Scorpio, Neptune being in Sagittarius, and Pluto being in Libra. So it's very interesting that right away, Eric's chart has a lot of fire signs in it. He has actually 5 fire signs and 0 earth signs, which means that he's very passionate, very fiery, very much a go-getter, like an action man. Fire signs are known for their action. And also with being an Aries, that's the ram. So they're very stubborn and kind of, I don't want to say bullheaded because that's the Taurus, but they're very stubborn and they're very headstrong. Now, also with Aries being the first sign of the zodiac, they have that little like me first attitude of wanting to like start things, but then not necessarily seeing them all the way through. And also within his chart, he has overall 9 masculine signs, only 1 feminine sign, 7 cardinal, 1 fixed, and 2 mutable. And, going back with the elements, he has 5 fire, 0 earth, 4 air, and 1 water. So with that combination, right away, it tells me that he is very much someone who thinks with his head and is action-oriented and does not really go too deep with his emotions or with the emotions of others. He doesn't really care about that. And honestly, as we've kind of talked over the series, you know, Eric Harris was a true blue psychopath. So crossing or connecting those dots, I mean, it makes sense that way. Now, the amount of retrograde planets being at 4. Now, of course, the further out you go into the solar system, when the planet's in retrograde, it will be in retrograde for a longer period of time. The effects of it, though, won't be as significant or won't be as felt as, say, if Mercury or Venus was in retrograde, because they're closer to us. So I just thought it was very interesting. I remember Ted Bundy and many of our other serial killers that we've covered in last season had a lot of planets in retrograde. So now when we go with Dylan Klebold, his birthday was September 11th, 1981, and he was born in Lakewood, Colorado. So his sun is in the sign of Virgo, moon's in Aquarius, Mercury's in Libra, Venus in Libra, Mars in Leo, Jupiter in Libra, Saturn in Libra, Uranus in Scorpio, Neptune in Sagittarius, Pluto in Libra, Lilith in Scorpio, and the North Node in Leo. So again, we see a lot of the same sign kind of being represented. Like with Eric, it was a lot of Aries, and with Dylan, it's a lot of Libra. So Dylan has 6 air signs, only 2 fire signs, 1 earth sign, and 1 water sign. So Dylan already, you can tell with all that air, very much an intellectual, very much in the head, having these great ideas, wanting to find that balance in life. And, you know, we discussed that he struggled a lot to find that balance, and he suffered a lot with depression. He has 8 masculine signs, 2 feminine, 5 cardinal, 3 fixed, and 2 mutable. So again, a very powerful masculine energy, and maybe not as much of a go-getter or action-oriented as Eric was, because between the two, Eric was very much the brains of the operation, of wanting to put the whole shooting into motion, and Dylan was more of a yes man. So I thought that was a very interesting about how we kind of talked about that over the course of the last couple of weeks, and then we can kind of see that coming through within their chart. Now, when we combine the two charts and we talk about their compatibility, Some things of interesting note is that there can be a strong attraction between these two, but in time, plenty of disagreements. Each person can find the other selfish at times, or too demanding, or too overbearing, regardless of their true natures. Although they may feel like they belong together in some way, it can be problematic union. Codependency issues can most certainly arise, and perhaps there was a little bit of that over the course of their, friendship. Who knows what would have happened if, say, they would have prolonged the shooting, further out, or if they would have done something different. And then another aspect is that this is likely to be a significant relationship. There's a strong feeling of belonging to one another, for better or for worse, that keeps the two together. It's an excellent aspect for a union. They are made to go well together, to understand, to appreciate, love, and complement each other. This is one strong indication of a significant union. And honestly, guys, it was a very significant union. They thought that, with Dylan and Eric, that those were the dynamic duo. They felt such a connection to each other. It was like them against the world. And that is because of Dylan's sun is sextiling Eric's moon in that regard. Oh, in the previous one with the challenge aspect, Dylan's was squaring Eric's sun. So Dylan's sun was squaring Eric's moon. So, and I know I've talked about the squares and the sextiles in a previous episode. So squares are challenging aspects and sextiles are not. So another interesting challenging aspect is Dylan's moon is opposing Eric's Neptune. The union could be full of illusions and disappointments. They could find it difficult to understand each other, or they might feel they totally understand when they don't. Unfaithfulness and lies can be on the agenda in some cases, but if they aim to be very clear and to clear up misunderstandings quickly, they can go around this tendency. Now, the union was kind of very much full of illusions, and maybe they were more so honest with each other as far as what they wanted to do, but we discussed at length how much Eric would manipulate everyone, especially adults or his parents or those in authority, to get what he wanted. And it's pretty clear that he was the brains of the operation, and he wanted to get what he needed out of Dylan. One last thing of note here before we move on. Another challenging aspect between these two is that it's a very strong passion, but destructive at times. Jealousy, possessiveness, and resentment are very possible. If the relationship ends, it is difficult to remain friends, as one person feels burned. Well, they were friends until the end, and then they both killed themselves. So, yeah, difficult to remain friends. So, all right, let's talk about their individual birthdays using the birthday encyclopedia. Again, let's start with Mr. Eric. So being born on April 9th, for his character, so right now I'm actually referring to 365 birthdays interpreted from Michelle Knight. I'll be getting to the birthday encyclopedia here in just a second. So the character of people who have birthdays on April 9th. They're over the top and overwhelming. You have a huge personality and are a party animal. You love to have a good time and have a remarkable capacity for working and playing hard. You need to relax, as this overindulgence may cause health problems. You aim to keep fit, but need to match your diet with your exercise. And then life path. You have to win in all battles and can be aggressive. Be very careful of outbursts of rage. Your anger passes quickly, but others may hold a grudge. You are easily led into passionate liaisons and need to stop and think before you leap. And that's another trait for Aries in general, is that, they are a fire sign. So they do tend to have a bit of a temper, and they can be a bit of a short fuse as well. So when we consult the birthday encyclopedia, for those born on April 9th, it is the birthday of the whirlwind. Their greatest challenge is knowing when to stop. The way forward is to understand that stopping yourself when you still want more is the way to keep desire and motivation alive. Overindulgence simply kills it. These people often have a strong personality and don't like to be in a subservient position. In their professional life, their understanding of what people need can make them accurate predictors of social trends. They have the ability to turn their ideas into reality, and by doing so, they not only enrich the lives of others, but can also profit themselves. Others often seduced by their charm, although some find their outspokenness somewhat excessive. They have to win every argument, often somewhat bluntly, and they also don't take kindly to criticism, regarding any such comment as a form of betrayal. And I know we touched on that numerous times throughout the series, that for any little slight, any little comment, Eric would just go off like a switch, and it would just flip, and he'd become erratic and just go after people, or they would suddenly be on his list, and he would publish his list on his website of people he wanted to kill or people that he hated. So this whole personality of him with his astrology and birth chart very much seemed to be going hand in hand. On the dark side, those born on April 9th are excessive, reckless, and unreliable, but at their best, they were energetic, bold, and progressive. And I'm sure he had a lot of energy, and obviously he was very bold with his actions and his way of thinking, his ideology. And unfortunately, he just used it for the wrong things. He was so wrapped up in his own psychosis and his own negative, thoughts, feelings, whatever, that it just was incredibly destructive. So let's turn over to Dylan then. Now, as we know, Virgos are earth signs and the sign of the Virgin. So we're consulting the 365 book right now. So for the character of those born on September 11th, you may sit in a cocoon for many years, hatching plans of how you can transform yourself and the world at large. As long as you mix with people who don't have your depth or potential, you are lulled into the false idea that life just ticks along. At some point or another, your life will suddenly take off in a way that exceeds even your own expectations, making you realize that you have wings and can indeed fly. The life path is you were born under a very special number. As 11 is a master number, this means that you are among a small percentage of people who have magic within them. You are capable of great deeds and will never really be totally happy until you do something magnificent with your life. Great things are so much easier for you to achieve than you realize, so dream it and do it. It's again tragic in the way that, Dylan with his depression and that crystallizing into the aggression and anger by following Eric into this massacre. It's just so tragic, because had he again transformed this energy into something more productive, if he would have taken his rehabilitation with counseling seriously. Now, I know we said that Eric was on like Zoloft and antidepressants. It never was really said that Dylan was, and I don't believe he was. But had he, actually gotten the help that he really truly needed, and I know his parents did try, but it just didn't stick. It was like Teflon. One could hope that he would have been able to turn his life around. Again, we are assuming, we're storytelling here, as we do with so many other people. But it is indeed tragic. With what happened with both of them. Now, Eric is the true blue psychopath here, so it's uncertain to say if he would have ever changed. It's uncertain to say if, the psychosis would have just continued to grow, and if it wouldn't have been like a mass murder like he did in the school. Perhaps he would have been a serial killer. Again, who's to say? I'm spitballing here. But all right, so now let's consult the encyclopedia, the birthday encyclopedia. So those born on September 11th, which, if you have that birthday on September 11th, my heart does go out to you, because obviously it must be a very hard day to celebrate given what has happened, especially if you're American. So September 11th is the birthday of the radical idealist. Your greatest challenge is to avoid becoming fixated on one issue, and the way forward is to understand that a balanced workload and approach is a far more effective and rewarding, healthy way to deal with life. And, for as depressed as Dylan was, when he would write in his journal, he would write about love and wanting love and to be loved and to love this girl, this woman that he called Harriet in his journal. And that's all he wanted in return. So he really became fixated on that issue. And then he felt like he was owed the world, because when he felt that he would not ever receive that love, it would soon turn to hate. People born on September 11th think independently and clearly, and they will often shock or surprise others with their unconventional views, as well as being fiercely opinionated. They're also incredibly compassionate, and their urge to help others may be so strong that it may take a radical form, either by passionately defending traditional views or by defiantly rebelling against them. Whatever position they choose to defend, they will defend it passionately or take risks to prove their conviction. They can sometimes come across as extremely serious or critical, but behind this outward show of boldness and courage, there is also a part of them that longs for stability or an authority figure to guide them. And I believe that for Dylan, this authority figure was absolutely Eric in this regard of guiding. There may often be a silent battle or conflict going on within themselves that manifests itself in sudden mood swings or intense highs followed by intense lows, which manifested for Dylan as his depression. So, again, a very interesting aspect about how everything we've covered previously with, the psychological profile of both of them, and then their astrological profile, their natal charts, kind of basically mirroring that. Obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you might have some sort of belief in astrology. But if you don't, that's okay too. So, again, a very interesting aspect as far as how those things seem to have aligned with what we had talked about. So, that's all I got for you guys today. And again, I just want to thank you guys so much for your support of the show, and also for your understanding of me taking some time and just kind of focusing on other things. Don't worry about me though. Like I said, I'm definitely much taking care of myself during, this whole shutdown, this whole sheltering at place. I've been marathoning Xena, a Warrior Princess, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, as well as cross-stitching quite extensively. So that's kind of where I've been at right now. Definitely the podcast has been on the back burner for me, and I want to go in a different direction. I want to do something that's a little lighter, a little bit more upbeat. I'm really burnt out with this whole true crime thing, and I hope you guys can understand and appreciate that. So I hope you guys are also taking care of yourself, and don't feel free to reach out. I would always love to hear from you guys, to check in. You can catch me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all at Jordy Death. That's JORDY Death. I am kind of bouncing back and forth a little bit. I have been taking a little bit of hiatus from social media too, just because with all the false information and the negativity, you guys, I'm sure you guys get it. It just wears you down, So, but at the end of the day, it's really just important that you take care of yourself and you take the steps necessary to make sure that your balance in life is healthy, and you're just doing whatever you can. And if you're struggling, as I said in the last episode, as Kyle and I both said, there are resources out there for you. The suicide hotline. You can Google your local municipality for free mental health resources. A lot of counselors are doing either video conferencing or phone conferencing, and that's what my mom's been doing for the last about month or so since we've done the whole shelter in place. So, and it's been very beneficial for her clients. So there's always something out there for you guys, and you need to know that you are very much needed and wanted, and your feelings are valid, and it's just a really weird time, So until next time, guys, take care of yourself and each other, and rest in peace.